Fall colors continue to change across the United States from north to south and kind of from top to bottom when you're looking at elevation changes in the terrain across the United States. But if you're trying to plan that perfect fall foliage trip across the U.S., we're trying to help you plan that. We're talking about the best time to see the peak color nationwide. We're starting in the Northeast. A lot of us in the Adirondacks and northern portions of the Appalachians, and then close to the Canadian border, we already are getting that peak fall change in late September. And then as we approach the south and get closer towards the coast with a little bit more humidity, we're delayed a little bit. A lot of us in October from Boston south to Cape Cod, we get those peak colors. In New York City, just a little bit later, in late October. But if you're looking towards the Great Lakes, a lot of us are in mid-October for Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. So peak fall color continues to really change, especially over October. In the Midwest, it kind of goes straight from north to south. There isn't much elevation, of course, from Michigan and Wisconsin and Minnesota. So it's really just based on latitude and how dark we get and how cold we get also at night. But a lot of us in the UP of Michigan and northern Minnesota and the headwaters of the Mississippi, it's late September. And then throughout the mitten, we notice those peak fall colors start to be delayed towards early October. And eventually, once we get towards Grand Rapids, is about mid-October. Chicago, also mid-October. And the same story for northern Indiana and Ohio. In the Appalachians, it's fun just because of the higher terrain and we get some of those cooler nights. We also get an earlier change for those fall colors. A lot of us get from West Virginia, western portions of Virginia itself, and then also western portions of North Carolina. It's about early October. But then once you get towards the coast, towards Washington, D.C. and Baltimore and Norfolk, Newport News, it's closer to late October. We're a little bit delayed once again because of the humidity. We're sitting right next to the Atlantic Ocean. Once you head farther south towards the southeast, of course, the southeast really isn't always known for peak fall colors just because by the time we finally hit peak, we get these strong cold fronts that just come right through and knock all the leaves off. And the humidity in the air also doesn't help produce some of the brightest fall colors like you sometimes see across the north. But you do get some of the fall colors in northern Georgia thanks to some of the terrain in early October and mid-October. But then as we get closer towards the Gulf Coast, a lot of us, it's basically a story waiting towards early November and mid-November. Same story once you head towards the South Central Plains. Much of Texas is in that mid-November category. But then in Arkansas, it's fun because of the terrain. In the Boston Mountains and in the Ozarks, we can actually get peak fall color in about mid-October towards late October. Same story, Northwest Arkansas. The rest of the River Valley is about early November, and that stretches into Oklahoma as well. Farther towards the north in the northern plains, it's also interesting because even though you're so much farther north into North Dakota and South Dakota, we don't have that many trees here in the high plains, to really be honest. So we do get some of that peak fall color, but a lot of times it has to wait towards late October. There's several times, even throughout October, you get these strong southerly winds right in the plains that helps keep temperatures just a little bit warmer at night when you really need them to be colder. And then when you look towards the west and the Pacific Northwest, really depends on your elevation here. From north to south, a lot of us are in October, but then in the Rocky Mountains, and it's depending on some of the ranges that you want to visit in Montana and western Wyoming and Idaho, a lot of this takes place in late September, and then that stretches off towards the south too. Speaking of the south, when we get towards the desert southwest, it really depends on elevation. Higher terrain areas, you can get peak color in early October, sometimes even late September. But then in some of the desert portions of the desert southwest, you got parts of the Great Basin and Nevada, and then also Southern California. It's more towards late October and early November. If you have some of the trees, it just takes a lot longer just because of the heat that's really built up. But some of us have beautiful fall colors in northern Arizona, parts of New Mexico, where you're higher up in elevation, you've got some cooler nights. So overall, a lot of us see that change in October, and then closer to the south, it's November. But hopefully this helps you plan your perfect fall foliage visit.